There's a famous experiment in psychology. You watch a video of people passing a basketball back and forth, and you're told to count the passes. Simple task. Most people get the number right. But here's what almost half of them miss completely. At some point, a person in a full gorilla costume walks slowly through the middle of the group, thumps their chest, and walks off, in plain sight, for 9 full seconds, and close to half the people watching never see it. Not because they weren't paying attention, but because they were paying attention to something else, and the brain, quite literally, deletes what it isn't looking for. Now hold that thought, because I want to suggest something that might be uncomfortable. This is exactly what is happening with money in your life right now, not metaphorically, neurologically. There are opportunities, resources, openings walking right through the middle of your day. And you are not seeing them, not because they're not there, because your brain has been trained to scan for something else. And by the end of this video, you're going to understand exactly what your brain is scanning for instead, why gratitude is the specific tool that switches what you're scanning for, and how to train that switch on purpose. Not with affirmations you repeat at a mirror, but with a method that's actually based on how attention works. Let's get into it. Here's the problem. Stated plainly, most advice about money tells you to work harder, save more, or manifest more. But almost nobody tells you that your brain has a finite amount of attention, and where you point it determines what becomes visible to you and what disappears. There's a body of research from behavioral economists Sendhil Mullainathan and Eldar Shafir that should be required watching for anyone who has ever felt stuck financially. They studied what happens to people's thinking under scarcity, not just money scarcity, but time scarcity, food scarcity, any kind of not enough. And what they found wasn't that poor decisions cause scarcity. It was closer to the opposite. Scarcity causes poor decisions, because scarcity consumes what they call cognitive bandwidth, the mental capacity you have for everything else: planning, noticing, evaluating, deciding well. Think of your attention like a flashlight in a dark room. When you are anxious about money, that flashlight gets grabbed by the bills, the balance, the what if it runs out. It narrows. And a narrowed flashlight, by definition, lights up less of the room. The opportunity sitting 6 feet to your left, the conversation that could have led somewhere, the idea you almost had, the person who could have helped, sits in the dark, not gone, just unlit. This is why people under financial stress often make decisions that look irrational from the outside, and why just think positive, or just work harder, never actually fixes it. You cannot out-effort a narrowed flashlight. You have to widen the beam first, and working harder while the beam is narrow just means working harder in the dark. So the real question isn't, how do I get more money? It's, how do I widen the beam so I can actually see what's already in the room? And this is where almost every piece of content in this space gets it wrong. They hand you 200 affirmations to listen to while you sleep. But repeating, "I am abundant" to a brain whose flashlight is still locked onto threat doesn't widen anything. It's like whispering encouragement to someone with their eyes closed. The eyes have to open first, and there is a very specific, very physical mechanism for opening them. It's gratitude, not as a mood, as a mechanism. This is the part that stops being a belief system and starts being measurable. Psychologist Barbara Fredrickson built what's called the broaden and build theory of positive emotion. The short version: negative emotions like fear and scarcity narrow your attention and your behavior down to a small set of survival responses. Fight, flee, freeze, grab, hoard. That's useful if a tiger is chasing you. It is disastrous if you're trying to notice a financial opportunity, because opportunities, almost by definition, are things you weren't already looking for. Positive emotions do the opposite. They broaden the scope of what your attention takes in, and the range of actions you consider possible. And gratitude, specifically, is one of the fastest, most reliable ways to generate that broadened state on demand. Not happiness in general, gratitude specifically, because gratitude requires you to notice something real, outside yourself, that is already working. That act of noticing is what flips the switch. There's brain imaging research, a study by neuroscientist Glenn Fox and colleagues, showing that genuine gratitude activates the medial prefrontal cortex, a region tied to moral judgment, social bonding, and reading other people's intentions. Other studies on gratitude and reward processing point to similar activity in the brain's reward circuitry. The same systems involved in motivation and pleasure. Put together, your nervous system gets a direct signal. There's no threat here, no scarcity, you can come out of tunnel vision now. And this is the part nobody in the manifestation space explains, because it's not mystical, it's mechanical. When your nervous system downgrades the threat signal, the parasympathetic system engages. Heart rate variability improves. The vagus nerve, the same nerve that governs your rest and digest state, gets more active. And your visual and cognitive attention, freed from scanning for danger, widens back out. You start noticing things, actual, real things. The email you'd been ignoring that had an opportunity buried in it. The skill you have that someone would pay for. The person in your network who's been quietly trying to reach you. This is what the old spiritual traditions were pointing at when they talked about abundance as a frequency or a state of being, rather than a possession. They didn't have fMRI machines, so they used the language available to them. But the underlying claim holds up under modern measurement. The state you occupy changes what becomes visible and possible to you. Not by magic, by attention. Scarcity is a contraction. Gratitude is an expansion. And you cannot perceive an opportunity with a contracted nervous system any more than you can see a gorilla while you're locked onto counting passes. There's an uncomfortable catch, though. If gratitude only works as a vague feeling, I'm grateful for life, for love, for money. Research on hedonic adaptation shows the effect fades fast. Your brain gets used to vague gratitude the same way it gets used to anything repeated without specificity. That's exactly why affirmation loop videos plateau. People watch them for months and nothing structurally changes. The broadening effect requires something more precise, and that's what the practice is built around. So here are 3 steps, not affirmations. A training protocol for your attention done over the next 30 days. Step 1. The specificity filter. Every morning, before you check your phone, name one specific financial detail from the last 24 hours that already worked. And it has to be specific, not general. Not, I'm grateful for money. Something like, the card didn't decline at checkout yesterday. A client paid on time. I found $5 I'd forgotten about in a coat pocket. It sounds almost insultingly small. That's the point. Specificity is what actually activates the circuitry. Vague gratitude barely registers, precise gratitude registers strongly, because it forces your brain to retrieve a real memory rather than recite a slogan. You're not trying to feel amazing. You're trying to prove to your nervous system, with evidence, that the system currently works at all. That's the seed of the broadened state. Step 2. The opportunity scan. Immediately after the specificity filter, within the same 2 or 3 minutes, while that broadened state is still active, ask yourself one question. What is one thing right now that I might be missing because I wasn't looking for it? Don't force an answer, just hold the question loosely for 60 seconds, the way you'd hold a flashlight steady instead of pointing it only at the floor. This is the step that converts the neurological state into actual perception. You are using the brief window where your attention is wide open to deliberately scan, instead of letting that window close unused, which is what happens to almost everyone who practices gratitude passively. Step 3. The receipt log. At the end of each day, write down anything, however small, that you noticed during your opportunity scan that you would normally have missed. A conversation you almost skipped, an idea you almost dismissed, a person you almost didn't reply to. This is not a gratitude journal in the usual sense. It's a receipt. Proof accumulating day by day that widening your attention produces real material that narrowed attention does not. After 30 days, you are not hoping the practice works. You are reading your own evidence that it already has. Do this daily, and something shifts that has nothing to do with positive thinking. You start catching things in real time, mid-conversation, mid-scroll, mid-decision, that you would have walked straight past a month earlier. Not because the world generated more opportunities, because you stopped being the person whose flashlight only pointed at the bills. I want to leave you with one more thought before you go. The gorilla in that experiment was never hidden. It walked through the middle of the screen in full view, in a bright room, for 9 seconds. The only thing standing between the viewer and seeing it was where their attention had been trained to go. Your financial life right now may have its own gorilla walking through it. Not hidden, not lucky, just unlit, because the flashlight has been pointed at scarcity for years, maybe since childhood, maybe since a specific hard season of your life. This video isn't telling you that gratitude will deposit money into your account. It's telling you something more useful and, honestly, more respectful of your intelligence. That the opportunities are very likely already in the room, and the work in front of you is not to manifest more of them into existence. It's to finally widen the beam enough to see the ones that are already there. If this reframed something for you, subscribe. This channel is building a real evidence-based map of how consciousness and money actually intersect, one mechanism at a time, no hype. And before you close this video, do me one favor. In the comments, name one specific thing, small, real, specific, that worked for you in the last 24 hours. Not "I'm grateful for everything." One real detail. That's step one of the practice, and there's no better time to start than right now while you're already here. See you in the next one.